In Mazini Village, justice was older than paper. It did not live inside books. It lived inside memory, inside ritual, inside the voice of the chief and the circle of council elders who sat beneath the cracked marula tree at the center of the kraal. When Portia Zulu returned home after graduating from the University of the Witwatersrand, she believed she understood injustice. She had studied constitutional supremacy, human dignity, due process, but she had never stood in the middle of a crowd that could destroy a boy with nothing but a rumor. Mazini was beautiful in the way forgotten places often are. Rolling hills, cattle grazing against golden sunsets, children running barefoot between rendezvous. But beneath the beauty was fear, quiet, disciplined fae. The chief ruled with tradition behind him and the council at his side. People bowed not just out of respect, but because questioning authority had consequences. And Portia would learn that very quickly. It began with livestock. 7 cattle belonging to Mlabini Kumalo, one of the richest men in Mazini, went missing. Mlabini was not merely wealthy. He financed ceremonies. He donated to the chief's harvest festivals. His influence seeped into decisions long before they were spoken aloud. At dawn, the drums summoned the village. By midday, a boy named Langa stood at the center of the kraal. 17 years old, thin, nervous, fatherless. His mother survived by selling vegetables near the taxi rank that connected Mazini to towns closer to Johannesburg. Mlabini did not hesitate when he accused him. "I saw him near my kraal 2 nights ago," he said firmly. No witness confirmed it. No cattle were found in Langa's possession. But suspicion was enough. The elders leaned toward one another, murmuring. Portia noticed something unsettling. Before the public gathering, Mlabini had spent nearly an hour inside a private hut with 2 council elders. Later that afternoon, crates of bottled liquor were delivered discreetly to the back of the kraal. Portia understood the language of bribery, even when it was spoken without words. When Langa tried to explain that he had been working in distant fields that night, an elder struck his staff against the ground. "Silence. The council will decide." Portia stepped forward, heart pounding. "On what evidence?" she asked. The crowd stiffened. Her voice cut through tradition like a blade. The chief looked at her carefully. He had heard of her, the educated daughter who had returned from the city filled with new ideas. "This is Mazini," he said evenly. "We follow the ways that have kept us alive." "And if those ways are being manipulated?" she asked quietly. A ripple moved through the crowd. The verdict was delivered before sunset. Langa would be publicly whipped and his family's only cow confiscated. The crowd did not cheer. They simply accepted. That night, Portia followed tracks beyond the grazing lands. It was instinct, part legal training, part stubborn refusal to accept injustice. Near the dry riverbed, she found them. 7 cattle, hidden, their brands freshly altered. The burn marks were uneven, recent. The theft had not occurred. It had been staged. Mlabini intended to file for compensation through a rural livestock protection scheme funded by provincial authorities. By accusing Langa, he would not only claim insurance but also legally seize the boy's family cow as restitution. It was fraud layered on top of cruelty. But what disturbed Portia more was this. This was not the first time. The next morning, she demanded a second hearing. The elders resisted. Their authority was being threatened publicly. But this time, Portia brought villagers with her, particularly the youth who had begun whispering about fairness since her return. When she presented the hidden cattle before the chief, silence fell like a storm cloud. Mlabini's composure cracked. His explanations tangled into contradictions. But before the council could deliberate, something unexpected happened. 2 black SUVs arrived in Mazini. Government officials from the Department of Cooperative Governance stepped out, dressed in polished shoes and political smiles. They had heard rumors of instability in Mazini, rumors of unlawful punishments, rumors of traditional courts violating constitutional rights. They did not come to protect Langa. They came to gain leverage. One official, Mr. Jube, requested a private meeting with the chief. Portia was not invited, but she listened from outside the hut. "If your council continues with corporal punishment," Mr. Jube warned smoothly, "the province can suspend traditional authority funding, development grants, road projects, water infrastructure. It was not concern. It was blackmail. We can modernize this village, he continued. But cooperation is necessary. Cooperation meant loyalty, political loyalty. If the chief publicly aligned with their party before upcoming local elections, funding would flow. If not, investigations into human rights violations would begin. Portia realized the truth then. The council was corrupt, but the government was opportunistic. Both were willing to use Langa's case for power. The chief faced humiliation from two sides, exposed corruption within his council, and external pressure from officials seeking control. That evening, he called for a final gathering. The hidden cattle were displayed before the village. Mazini was forced to admit the deception. Gasps spread across the crowd like wildfire. But the chief did something unexpected. He turned not to the government officials. He turned to Portia. "You say our ways must change," he said before everyone. "But if we surrender them completely, outsiders will rule us." He then addressed the government delegation. "Mazini governs itself. We will not trade our authority for your grants." Mr. Jube smiled thinly, already calculating his next move. The chief ordered restitution for Langa's family and stripped Mazini of his advisory role. Then he made a declaration that split the village in two. From that day forward, traditional hearings would remain, but no severe punishment would occur without documented evidence. Portia would sit in council as legal advisor. Proceedings would be recorded. Accusations would require witnesses. Tradition would stand, but it would not stand alone. The government officials left dissatisfied. They had hoped for chaos, something they could exploit to justify intervention. Instead, they found resistance. Yet darkness lingered. Weeks later, Portia received anonymous threats. Whispers followed her at night. Some elders felt humiliated by the exposure. Some politicians saw her as an obstacle. She had stepped into a battlefield far larger than livestock. She had challenged a system where corruption fed on silence. Standing on the hill overlooking Mazini, she understood something difficult. Modern law and feudal tradition could coexist, but only if both were restrained. Power, whether ancestral or political, corrupted when unchecked. In Mazini Village, justice no longer belonged solely to the chief. And it did not belong to the government either. It belonged, painfully, imperfectly, to the people. And Portia Zulu had just begun a war that would not end quietly.